A quiet case of justice. The sprinkler clicked in its slow arc, casting a mist across the front lawn, where James Callahan stood with a coffee mug cooling in his hand. The morning air was thick with cut grass and the quiet hum of a neighbor's mower a few doors down. He wore an old t-shirt and jeans, the kind of uniform that passed without comment in a neighborhood like this, orderly, symmetrical, and always vaguely awake. He didn't usually check his phone out here, but the ping had come through just as he'd walked past the hydrangeas, and habit, more than curiosity, made him glance down. The screen was bright in the shade of his hand, a photo, public, tagged. His wife, Alice Morgan, smiling with Bryce Harmon outside what looked like a downtown hotel. Not an event, not a crowd, just them. The caption was Bryce's. Couldn't ask for a sharper partner, big moves ahead. The word partner stuck. James read it again. Then again. He stood still for several seconds, the mug cooling fast in his grip. The sprinkler clicked on, then off, then off. He tapped once, typed 7 words, and posted the comment without ceremony. Interesting phrasing. We should talk. JC. Then he turned, walked through the front door, and set the mug in the sink. A ring of brown clung to the porcelain. He didn't rinse it. He went upstairs. The guest room was always too cold. Alice kept it that way. For the linens. The air had that faint metallic chill of undisturbed spaces. He opened the closet. From the top shelf, behind a box of tangled chargers and a forgotten scarf, he pulled down a beige folder. The texture was rough, the corners soft from years of handling, even though it had only existed for 3 weeks. He laid it on the bed, centered, not dramatic. Then, without speaking, he walked back downstairs. 3 weeks earlier, the laundry room had been humming with the dryer's low rhythm when Alice passed behind him and said something she didn't mean for him to hear. Not quite a whisper, not quite to herself. I'll handle it Monday, he's too careful. James had paused, one hand still inside the dryer, fingers brushing warm socks. He didn't ask. He didn't turn. He just stood there, waiting for her to leave the room. She did, barefoot on tile, her phone already back in her hand. He knew the tone. It wasn't a lie. It was a management voice, her project voice, the one she used when smoothing over delays or steering committees back on course. She hadn't meant to use it near him. That night, after she fell asleep with her screen still glowing faintly on her nightstand, he sat in the kitchen with a legal pad and a bottle of seltzer. The pad stayed blank for 10 minutes. Then he wrote one word in the top left corner. Observe. Donnie Price was the first call. Donnie had known him since their early 20s, back when James was still filing insurance claims, and Donnie was laying drywall for a cousin's firm. They'd both moved up James into corporate compliance, Donnie into his own contracting outfit, but the friendship had stayed level. You ever hear anything about Alice and that kid from her office? James had asked, casual as a weather check. Donnie had grunted. Which kid? The one with the too perfect hair. Bryce. A pause. Not directly, but yeah, I've seen him at that happy hour spot near the courthouse. Just them. James had nodded, even though Donnie couldn't see him. How recent? Couple weeks back. Could have been work. Could have been not. That's enough. Appreciate it. Donnie didn't ask questions he didn't want answers to. James liked that about him. The second call was to Marcus Reed, late the next afternoon. James stood in the garage, phone to his ear. The door opened just enough to let in the smell of rain on asphalt. I need quiet advice, James said. Not action, not yet. Understood, Marcus replied. Talk. And James had. Not everything, just enough. The tone of Alice's voice, the happy hour sightings, the way her schedule had started shifting slightly. Meetings that used to be phone calls suddenly needing FaceTime. Marcus listened without interrupting. Start documenting, Marcus said finally. Dates, times, phrases. If this becomes a formal matter, you'll want contemporaneous notes. I already have a folder. Then keep filling it. Stay quiet. Let her relax into it. Cold, James said. Effective, Marcus replied. He didn't tell Alice he'd taken the next Friday off, just left before sunrise and drove to the office parking deck near her firm's building. He brought a book and a thermos and watched. At 9:15, she arrived, alone. At 10:23, Bryce emerged from the building and walked half a block east. She followed. They didn't touch, nothing overt, but the space between them told him enough. People who work together don't walk that way. Angled in, heads tilted, pausing mid-sentence with that loose, anticipatory posture. He didn't take pictures, not yet. He watched, noted the time, added a line to the folder. That weekend, he asked Dawn Patel, a former colleague now working IT security for a neighboring firm, to meet for coffee. She was precise and calm, always had been. He trusted her judgment. "I need screenshots," he said. "Public social media. No deep dives, no firewall breaches, just what's visible." "Of what?" "Alice, Bryce, their posts, likes, tags, anything that shows a pattern." Dawn sipped her tea. "You expecting something actionable?" "I'm expecting something patterned," she nodded. "Okay, I'll have it in a few days. You'll owe me a favor, though." Already owed. On the drive home, James rehearsed nothing. Just thought about the beige folder, how it had started as an idea and now had weight. Not just metaphorical. Real weight, paper, ink, dates, names. He'd always believed in systems. Not because they were fair, but because they were predictable. People behaved in patterns. Reputations were built in inches and lost in seconds. Alice had always chased the image. Her social media was curated with surgical precision, conference panels, networking brunches, the occasional stage candid with a wine glass and a book she never finished. She was good at it. That was part of why he'd admired her once. But admiration had edges, and patterns didn't lie. Back in the present, James stood in the kitchen and watched the last of the morning light slant across the floor. His phone buzzed again, a text from Bryce. "Hey man, saw your comment. Everything okay?" James didn't respond. Instead, he walked upstairs once more, paused at the guest room door, and looked at the folder resting neatly on the bedspread. Beige, unassuming. It would stay there for now, not hidden, not displayed, just waiting. He turned off the hallway light and closed the door with a soft click. A quiet case of justice. The first receipt came over lunch. James met Marcus at a quiet corner table in a cafe they used when discretion mattered, just far enough from downtown that no one from Alice's firm would wander in, but close enough that Marcus wouldn't complain about the drive. The waitress didn't ask if they wanted menus. She just brought coffee. Marcus drank his black, no sugar, no pause. James slid a folded paper across the table, not dramatic. Just a printout of a calendar screenshot. Alice's, color-coded, meticulously curated. A Tuesday afternoon blocked off as client prep, matched against Bryce's Instagram from that same hour. 2 wine glasses, a hotel rooftop, captioned with a line from a song Alice would never publicly admit knowing. The timestamp was crisp. The metadata, Dawn had confirmed, was intact. Marcus glanced down, then back up. "You sure you want to go down this road?" James didn't answer immediately. He took a sip, set the mug down carefully. "I'm already on it." Marcus nodded once. "All right, what are you trying to protect?" "House, retirement, reputation." "Reputation's a moving target, but the rest doable. You keep your head. Don't threaten. Don't confront. Don't hint." "I won't." Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You want scorched earth or containment?" James considered. "Precision, no mess, just the record." "That's harder," Marcus said. "But cleaner. We'll need more than this. Texts, access logs, expense reports, anything internal." "Working on it. I've got someone who can pull social media, public only. And Donnie's checking around the office. I'm not asking anyone to do anything illegal." "Good," Marcus said, "because once this starts, anything sketchy can be used against you. You want to win the war, not just throw punches." James nodded. "I know. Start a checklist. Keep it factual, no emotion in the file, just times, names, dates. Think like HR. Think like a judge." James already had. The folder on the guest bed was organized by week, color-coded tabs, a separate sheet tracking changes in Alice's tone. Colder, more clipped, especially after Bryce's name started appearing more often in her calendar. She hadn't noticed that James had stopped asking about her day. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, the beige folder beside him. The house was quiet. Alice was at a strategy dinner, which James had already confirmed was not on her company calendar and not with any listed client. The wine glasses in Bryce's story told their own truth. He opened a spreadsheet, Columns, date, time, event, source, verification. He started filling in entries. The lunch with Marcus, Dawn's screenshots, the whispered line in the laundry room 3 weeks ago. You know she's not really mentoring him, right? He hadn't turned around then, hadn't needed to. The voice was familiar, not cruel, just observant. A warning, maybe. That was the first crack. Now it was a ledger. Donnie called just after 9. You alone? Yeah. I asked around, quietly. Bryce has been playing real confident lately, not subtle. People are noticing. Anything specific? 2 people saw them leave that conference early, together. Didn't come back for the afternoon panel. Alice had her badge scanned, but she wasn't at her table. You want names? James hesitated. Only if they're willing to be referenced. I'm not burning anyone. Donnie grunted. They're not idiots. They know the game. I'll get initials and times. You stacking this up? Carefully? Good. Don't go off half-cocked. She's got image armor. You come at her without receipts, you'll look bitter. James looked at the folder again. I'm not coming at her. I'm just laying it out. Donnie paused. You okay, man? James didn't answer right away. I'm focused. That was enough. Donnie let it be. Later that night, James moved into the garage. The overhead light flickered, then held steady. It smelled faintly of motor oil and old grass clippings. Familiar. Honest. He stood for a while, arms crossed, listening to the quiet tick of the water heater. He reached for the small metal cabinet near the workbench. Inside was a fireproof box documents, insurance, backup drives. He unlocked it, pulled out the manila envelope labeled Trust. He hadn't looked at it in over a year. Alice was the primary beneficiary, still was. He set it on the bench, then he pulled out a fresh folder and a pen. He didn't change anything yet, just started drafting possibilities, contingencies, what would need to be updated, who to call, what to say. He wasn't emotional, not anymore. Emotion had its place, but not here. Here, precision mattered. The garage door creaked faintly as the wind shifted outside. James sat on the old stool and stared at the envelope. The line came back, unbidden. You know she's not really mentoring him, right? It had been said almost casually, but it had weight, not just suspicion, certainty. The kind that came from watching patterns, the kind James understood. He sat still for a long time. Then he stood, walked back inside, poured a glass of water from the sink. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. In the kitchen's soft light, he opened a drawer and pulled out a small notebook. Not digital, not traceable. He wrote the date at the top. Then, in clean block letters, he wrote, not if, how. He drew a line under it. Old self-patient, trusting, measured died when the patterns became undeniable. No more benefit of the doubt, no more waiting for honesty. Only one question now, not if she pays, but how completely. Something inside broke, but broken things make sharp edges. He opened his laptop, created a new folder, named it Receipts, began copying screenshots, organizing emails, matching timestamps. Precision mattered. Timing mattered. Above him, the hallway creaked faintly. James didn't look up. The version of himself who would have forgiven quietly, who would have swallowed it whole and carried on for the sake of appearances, that man was gone. What remained was colder, sharper, certain. A light rain tapped against the office window the next morning as James adjusted the blinds, letting in just enough gray daylight to work without the lamp. The desk was clean except for a legal pad, a beige folder, and the laptop open to a word processor. The folder had grown thicker overnight. Inside, printouts of Bryce's LinkedIn bio, a screenshot of the company's diversity initiative page where Alice was quoted, the now notorious photo from the gala, and a half-dozen emails that made his stomach tighten, despite already knowing what they said. He read them again anyway, not for shock, for phrasing, for tone. Really appreciate your guidance, Alice. Late-night sessions always help things click for me. Glad to be on the same wavelength. Let's keep momentum going. Same time next week? Casual, polished, innocent unless you were looking for the patterns. James was. He highlighted the timestamps, cross-referenced them with the hotel's public event calendar. The same hotel Alice had said hosted a vendor dinner, a vendor that, upon checking, had been acquired 6 months prior. He had the acquisition press release printed too. He clipped each document to the draft complaint like it was evidence in a trial, because that's what it was in essence. A quiet trial of character. The document itself was short, factual, no adjectives, no accusations. Just a chronological account of policy deviations, supported by time-stamped materials. He'd read the company's code of conduct twice, highlighted the relevant sections. Conflict of interest, misuse of authority, failure to disclose relationships that could influence decisions. He paused at the line. This complaint is submitted in the interest of maintaining ethical standards and institutional integrity. It was the kind of sentence people skipped over, but it mattered, because that was the whole point. Not vengeance, not even justice, really. Just the slow restoration of order. His phone buzzed. Donnie? He let it ring twice before answering. You really doing this, man? Donnie's voice was half caffeinated concern, half disbelief. James leaned back in his chair. Doing what? Come on, you know what? The folder, the screenshots. Dawn told me you're asking her about log trails and access windows. This isn't just poking around anymore. I'm not poking, I'm documenting. A pause. Look, I get it, I do. But this isn't just about her. You go nuclear, it hits you too. Reputational blowback, people picking sides, HR dragging its feet until someone leaks it. You sure you want that storm? James looked at the folder, then at the legal pad with his neat bullet points. I'm not leaking anything. That's not the point. You think Bryce's buddies won't start rumors? That Alice won't play the misunderstood woman in leadership card? You think people won't say you're bitter? They can say what they want. I'll have documentation. Donnie exhaled loudly. Jesus, man, talk to her. Just once. Look her in the eye. See if she lies to your face. Maybe she'll come clean. She's already lied to my face, more than once. Another pause, softer this time. You sure you're not doing this to win? James didn't answer, not directly. I'm doing this so she doesn't get to pretend nothing happened. Donnie was quiet for a beat. All right, just don't lose yourself in this. You're not the kind of guy who needs to burn things down to feel right. James ended the call without saying goodbye. The cursor blinked on the screen. He saved the draft, encrypted the folder, and backed it up to a flash drive he slipped into the inner pocket of his blazer. Later that afternoon, he sat across from Marcus Reed, whose office smelled faintly of printer toner and old leather. Marcus wore reading glasses low on his nose and flipped through the stack with the dry efficiency of someone who'd seen worse, but still didn't like what he was seeing. You realize once this is submitted, there's no clean way back, Marcus said, tapping the paperclip binding the complaint. You can't retract it without looking compromised. And if she's smart, and she is, she'll lawyer up before she cries. I'm not asking for your blessing. You're not getting it, Marcus replied, not unkindly. But I'll give you my advice. Strategically, wait another week. Let Dawn finish her timeline. Let Bryce keep talking. If you move too soon, you lose leverage. James studied the bookshelf behind Marcus. Thick volumes of case law, a couple of framed degrees, and a photo of Marcus fly fishing in Vermont. Nothing performative, just placed. I'm not looking for leverage, James said. I'm looking for clarity. Marcus leaned back. Clarity doesn't win hearings. Paper trails do. Let the rope get longer, then pull. James nodded once. I'll wait, but not forever. Outside, the sky had darkened. Rain now came in sheets. Back at home, he made coffee. The old machine hissed like it resented being used. He poured it into a chipped mug from a conference Alice had once spoken at. He set it down beside the laptop, opened a new tab, and typed a message to Dawn. Need to confirm. If HR requests keycard logs and email metadata, how long do they retain access? Also, are login times tied to device IDs? She replied within minutes. Yes, HR can request both. Email logs kept for 1 year. Keycard data, 6 months, sometimes longer if there's legal interest. Device IDs tracked by MAC address. If you want to correlate access and messages, it's doable. Just needs to be framed as a compliance concern, not personal. He typed back, understood, will frame accordingly, and then, thank you. She responded with a single line. Just be sure this is the hill you want to take. James didn't reply. He walked to the guest bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled down a small safe. Inside were 2 older phones, each reset but with SD card still inserted. He plugged one into the laptop. It was Alice's backup from a year ago, the one she'd asked him to store just in case. She'd forgotten about it. He hadn't. He scanned the text archives, filtering by Bryce's number. Nothing explicit, just familiarity, frequency. The kind of tone that doesn't belong between a mentor and a subordinate. He copied the logs, time-stamped them, added them to the folder. The rain slowed. Evening shadows stretched across the floor. At 8:30, he sat down again at the desk, opened the draft complaint, and read it from start to finish. He made 3 edits, tightened the language, removed a phrase that sounded like judgment. It wasn't about emotion. It was about structure, proof, process. He didn't send it, not yet, but he printed a clean copy, slid it into the beige folder, closed the laptop. He went to the kitchen, rinsed the mug, set it upside down on the dish rack. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and the faint tick of the hallway clock. He stood by the window for a long time, watching the reflection of the room behind him. The man in the glass looked calm, still. But inside, the edge was already honed. Tomorrow, or the next day, or the one after that, when the moment was right, the complaint would be submitted, and when it was, there would be no misunderstanding what it meant. Disassembly. The garage smelled faintly of oil and old grass clippings. James sat on the workbench stool, phone pressed to his ear, the morning sun slanting in through the half-open door. A spreadsheet was taped to the pegboard beside him, columns of account numbers, transfer instructions, and timestamps written in small, neat handwriting. "Yes," he said calmly into the phone. "I'd like to confirm the beneficiary change on the living trust, effective today." The woman on the other end asked for verification details. He provided them without hesitation. The tone of his voice never shifted. Neutral, precise. No co-trustee, just me. Yes, that's correct." He ended the call and looked at the next step. Separate accounts. He'd opened a new one the previous week in a different bank, under his name only. It held just enough for the next 2 months of expenses. The rest joint funds, retirement, the brokerage account, would remain frozen for now, pending legal review. Marcus had explained the boundaries clearly. Don't hide, don't steal, but act preemptively within the law. He wiped his hands on a rag and stepped back into the house. The desktop in the study hummed awake. He logged in, opened the secure browser, and navigated to the HR compliance portal. The form was already filled out. Anonymous, but thorough. Attachments uploaded, metadata intact, screenshots, logs. A brief, factual narrative, inappropriate communications, appearance of favoritism, potential policy breach regarding direct reports and romantic involvement. He hovered over the submit button. A soft knock sounded at the front door. He didn't move, waited. The knock came again, heavier this time. James walked slowly down the hall and opened it. Donnie Price stood there, baseball cap in hand, face creased with concern. "Hey, man," Don said. "Can we talk?" James nodded once and stepped aside. Don walked in, glancing around as if expecting to see someone else. "You alone?" "Yes." Don followed him into the kitchen. He didn't sit. "I heard," he said quietly, "about the post, the comment. You dropped that thing like a grenade." James reached for the kettle and turned it on. "It wasn't a grenade," he said. "It was a signal." Don rubbed his jaw. "Alice is gonna know, if she doesn't already." James said nothing. Don leaned against the counter, eyes sharp now. "Look, I get it, I do. She messed up. Bad. But this HR, legal traps, asset shields. You're not just walking away. You're torching the field on your way out." James poured hot water over the tea bag, watching the steam rise. "I'm not burning it," he said. "I'm marking the boundaries. She crossed them. I'm making sure she doesn't do it again, to me or anyone else." Don's voice lowered. "There's still a way to do this quiet. You sit her down, you tell her you know, you split clean. No lawyers, no scorched earth." James stirred the tea once, slowly. "She wouldn't split clean," he said. "She'd spin, she'd charm. She'd deny until the evidence was gone and the sympathy leaned her way. She's better at the stagecraft than I am." Don exhaled through his nose. "You're better than this, man." James looked at him then, eyes steady. "No, I'm just quieter." The room held still for a beat. Then Don shook his head. "I can't watch this happen," he said. "I won't stand in your way, but I won't clap either." James nodded. Dawn left without another word. Back in the study, James sat down again. The cursor still blinked over the submit button. He clicked it. There was no confirmation screen, just a quiet notice. Report received, thank you. He closed the browser. He stood, walked to the front closet, and pulled out the small box he'd packed the night before. Alice's spare keys, her badge, a few personal letters she'd kept in the drawer. He added the small frame photo from the hallway, her with her team, arm around Bryce's shoulder, all teeth and confidence. He placed it gently on top. Upstairs, he opened the master bedroom closet and removed the last of her clothes, folded them into the second box, and carried both to the guest room. The beige folder was still on the bed. He laid the boxes beside it, stacked neatly. Then he turned to the front door, replaced the lock cylinder with the new one he'd bought from the hardware store last week. It took 15 minutes. By the time he'd finished, the sun was high, and the inbox on his phone vibrated with a new message from Marcus Reed. Proceed with care, the message read. Paperwork is clean, but emotions will not be. Don't open the door to negotiation until she has representation. James replied, understood. Locks changed, folder placed, complaint submitted. Marcus's reply came a minute later. Then we're committed. Brace for noise. The house felt different now, not empty or sharper, as if the air had changed texture. James stood by the window again, watching the street. At 4:20 in the afternoon, Alice pulled into the driveway. She sat in the car for a full minute, staring at the house. Then she walked to the door and tried her key. It didn't work. She tried again. Then again, harder. She rang the bell. James opened the door halfway, blocking the view inside. Her face was flushed, confused. What the hell is this? Your things are in the guest room, he said evenly. The folder explains the rest. You changed the locks? Yes. Her voice rose. Are you serious right now? Yes. She tried to push past him. He didn't move. James, you don't get to do this. We talk. We sit down like adults. You forfeited that when you lied, he said. Repeatedly. She blinked. This is insane. You're acting like... The folder explains, he said again, and closed the door. He waited behind it, listening. There was a long pause, then the sound of her footsteps retreating. He didn't move until the car pulled out of the driveway. Upstairs, in the guest room, the boxes sat untouched. The folder was open now. A single sheet lay on top. A list of asset changes, account separations, and a note that the HR department had been alerted to potential policy violations, with appropriate documentation. No accusation, just facts. The sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the floor. James sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt precise and alone. The machine was moving now, not just the legal one, but the social one. The one that would whisper through offices, weave through brunch tables, buzz in group chats. The one that would ask why and how and when. But the questions wouldn't matter. The answers were already written. The house was silent again. Not peaceful. Just quiet in that particular way things are when something large has shifted and hasn't yet settled. James stood, went downstairs, and made himself a sandwich he didn't finish. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. He rinsed the plate, set it on the rack, and turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, the guest room door was still ajar. He left it that way. Let the folder wait. A pale morning bled through the blinds when the first ping came. James was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a chipped mug cooling in his hands. He didn't check the notification right away. The toast popped. He didn't move. Upstairs, the guest room remained untouched, the folder still open on the bed, its top sheet curling faintly at the corner. He finally unlocked his phone. One line from Donnie. It's happening. Across town, in a glass-paneled conference room with a view of a parking lot and the edge of the rooftop garden, Alice Morgan sat at the long table, her blazer still damp from the misting rain. She had applied makeup, but not well. The eyeliner was uneven and her lipstick looked rushed. Her smile held, barely, as Franklin entered with Carla from HR and another man she didn't recognize. Compliance, maybe. She didn't ask. Franklin nodded politely but didn't sit beside her. Instead, he took the chair across, placing a tablet down in front of him. Carla opened a folder, her nails clacking quietly as she adjusted the pages. Thanks for coming in, Alice, Carla said. We'll try to keep this focused. Alice nodded, controlled. Of course. I'm happy to help clarify whatever's going on. Carla's expression remained neutral. We received a formal complaint last week regarding potential violations of company conduct policy. The complaint was accompanied by documentation, some of which has since been verified internally. Alice's eyes flicked to Franklin. He looked down, not at her. I'm sorry. What exactly is being alleged? Carla didn't flinch. Improper relationship with a direct subordinate, use of company resources for non-business travel, and misrepresentation of client billing hours. Alice sat straighter. That's absurd. None of that is accurate. Carla turned the first page. We'd like to walk through the materials. The first item was a screenshot one Alice had seen before. A rooftop cocktail, Bryce beside her, their heads tilted together. The caption read, "Closing the quarter strong, couldn't have done it without this one." She opened her mouth, but Carla continued. Metadata from the original post places the photo at the Marlowe Hotel, evening of March 21st. That matches the company credit card charge and a calendar entry you marked as client dinner, off-site. That was a networking event, Alice said quickly. Bryce was shadowing. He's new to the territory. Franklin spoke now, soft but firm. There was no client at that event. We confirmed with the region lead. Alice blinked. Carla slid forward another sheet. Additionally, our systems team reviewed internal messaging logs. While we don't access content without legal cause, we do retain header data time stamps, recipients, volume. There's a pattern of high volume, off-hour communication between you and Mr. Harmon, beginning in early January, including weekends. Alice's voice sharpened. That's not against policy. We're allowed to communicate outside hours if it's project-related. Carla nodded. Yes, but combined with the travel records, billing discrepancies, and corroborating witness statements, it raises concern. Witness statements? Alice's voice cracked. Franklin shifted uncomfortably. Two colleagues came forward independently. One noted a pattern of preferential treatment. The other flagged a conversation overheard in the break room. Alice laughed short, brittle. This is insane. You're building a case out of rumors and proximity. Bryce is ambitious, and I've been mentoring him. That's it. Carla didn't respond. She simply tapped the next sheet. A printed email header, subject line, Marlowe rooftop, let's not be seen. Timestamp 2 days before the photo. Alice paled. We're initiating a formal review, Carla said. Effective immediately. You're being placed on administrative leave. Your system access has been revoked. We'll ask you to return your badge and company laptop before you leave the premises. I know. This is a mistake. I want to speak to legal. You're entitled to representation, Carla replied. But as of now, this is procedural. You'll receive written notice by end of day. Franklin stood. He didn't meet her eyes. I'll walk you down. The hallway outside the conference room was quiet, but not silent. Doors that were usually open were now closed. Alice walked stiffly, her heels clicking too loudly on the tile. At the elevator, Franklin pressed the button without speaking. She turned to him. You really think I did something wrong? He hesitated. I think you lost perspective. The elevator dinged. She stepped in alone. By the time she reached the lobby, her name had already been removed from the internal directory. She tried to badge out through the side exit. The red light blinked. She had to walk back to the front and ask the receptionist to buzz her through. The receptionist didn't smile. Later that afternoon, Bryce sat in a smaller, equally sterile room. He looked younger than usual, his jaw tight. Yes, he said, voice low. We were involved, but she never pressured me. I didn't get any special treatment. Carla nodded, recording. Did you stay at the Marlowe Hotel with Ms. Morgan on March 21st? A pause. Yes. Was that trip booked through the company? A longer pause. Yes. Did you file expense reports indicating client dinners or meetings that did not occur? Bryce swallowed. I submitted what she told me to. He was suspended as well, pending review. Meanwhile, on the company intranet, a brief internal memo appeared under the HR Updates tab. We are conducting a review into potential policy violations within the Sales and Partnerships team. While we cannot comment on specifics, we reaffirm our commitment to maintaining a professional and equitable work environment. Thank you for your cooperation. Employees read between the lines. The hallway chatter began. Screenshots of the rooftop photo circulated again, now with commentary. Someone dug up an old LinkedIn post where Alice had written about ethics and leadership. It did not age well. At home, James watched the ripples unfold from a distance. Dawn had texted him earlier. They move fast, she's out. Bryce too. You didn't hear it from me. He typed back, appreciated, stay low. He didn't feel satisfaction. He felt motion. That evening, Alice came back. He heard the car door, then the urgent knock. James opened the front door but didn't step aside. She looked different now, not broken but dented. Her blouse had a stain at the collar. The foundation had worn off around her nose. You started this, she said, breath shallow. You sent them that stuff. James didn't answer. You're ruining my career. Over what? A photo? His voice was quiet. It wasn't the photo. She stared at him, searching. Then what? He didn't blink. The lying, the casualness of it, the assumption I'd never know. She stepped back as if struck. You didn't even ask. You just went nuclear. No, he said. I documented. HR moved on their own. She scoffed. Don't give me that. You wanted this. You engineered it. He didn't deny it. I have nothing now, she said. You understand that? You torched everything. He looked at her for a long time. I didn't torch anything. I just turned on the lights. She opened her mouth, then closed it. He held out a small flash drive. She hesitated. It's a copy of the documents, financials, legal prep. The message is pre-recorded. Marcus says you'll understand. She took it slowly, like it might burn her fingers. I don't want this to get uglier, she said. Then stop making it uglier. She stepped back. I hope you're proud. I'm not. He closed the door. The next day, her name vanished from the team page. Her office was reassigned. Her inbox auto-responded with a generic message. No longer with the company. James didn't comment. He didn't log in to gloat. He mowed the lawn that Saturday as usual. The rhythm steadied him. Donnie stopped by in the afternoon, handed him a coffee, and leaned against the fence. Hell of a thing, he said. James nodded. You okay? I will be. Donnie took a sip. People are talking. Some think you went too far. James didn't answer. But most of them, Donnie added, they're just glad someone finally played the game better than the people who think they own it. James exhaled. The grass was already growing back where he'd cut it short last week. He looked at the yard, at the quiet house behind him, and then at the sky-gray, heavy waiting. Inside, the guest room door was still open. The folder was gone. Courtroom 3 was windowless and cold, the kind of institutional space that tried to feel neutral but only managed sterile. The hum of the overhead lights mixed with the soft shuffling of papers, heels against tile, and the occasional throat clear from opposing counsel. James sat at the table beside Marcus Reed, hands folded, expression unreadable. He wore a dark suit, pressed but not new. He hadn't bought anything for the occasion. Alice sat across the aisle, alone at her table. Her attorney had withdrawn the week prior conflict of interest, he'd said, citing her employment status and pending litigation. She had insisted on representing herself, claiming clarity, but now her posture was tight, her confidence brittle. Her blazer looked a half size too stiff. She didn't look at James. The judge entered, a woman in her late 50s with a practiced cadence and a gaze that skimmed over the room like a scanner. She called the matter to order, and Marcus rose with the precision of someone who had done this many times, but still found meaning in doing it well. Your Honor, he began, voice even, we're here to finalize the dissolution of marriage between Mr. James Callahan and Ms. Alice Morgan. We're requesting that the court consider the submitted documentation regarding asset origination, spousal contributions, and supplemental evidence of misconduct relevant to financial and property division. He passed a thick folder to the clerk, who delivered it to the bench. Supplemental evidence? The judge asked, flipping through the early pages. Yes, Your Honor. Verified by independent IT review, time-stamped communications, and corroborated expense reports. Alice's eyes flicked up at that, just for a second. Marcus continued. Exhibits A through E outline the 5-part chain. First, the internal email audit flagged by compliance after a third-party social media post drew attention to a potential conflict of interest between Ms. Morgan and Mr. Harmon, a junior employee under her direct supervision. The judge nodded, flipping a page. Second, Marcus said, We include hotel records from Dallas, showing overlapping stays and identical billing structures that contradict the company's travel policy. Third, we have screenshots provided by an internal IT liaison, properly redacted, that show Slack messages of a personal nature during office hours, some of which involve strategic career discussions between Ms. Morgan and Mr. Harmon. James didn't move. He could feel Alice's breathing from across the room, sharp and shallow. Fourth, Marcus said, a forensic accounting of the couple's shared finances, demonstrating that joint funds were used to cover expenses unrelated to the marital household expenses, tied directly to Ms. Morgan's travel with Mr. Harmon. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. And fifth, Marcus concluded, an affidavit from a former colleague confirming the nature of the relationship and the timeline, which aligns with the other evidence. The judge held up a page. This timeline begins in April? Yes, Your Honor, but the inflection point came earlier. My client became aware of inconsistencies shortly after a business trip in March. He began documenting. Alice shifted. Your Honor, she began, voice tight. This is character assassination masquerading as divorce proceedings. I've already lost my job. This isn't about property. It's about humiliation. The judge looked up, expression neutral. Ms. Morgan, the evidence here is procedural. If you object to its accuracy, you may offer a counter-narrative, but the material itself is relevant to the court's consideration of asset division. Alice hesitated, then sat back, silent. Marcus placed his hands flat on the table. We are requesting that the court assign full ownership of the primary residence to Mr. Callahan, as it was purchased before the marriage. Additionally, we ask that the vehicle registered to Mr. Callahan remain in his possession, and that the division of retirement and investment accounts reflect the unequal contributions and recent dissipation of marital funds. The judge flipped a few more pages. An alimony? We are not requesting it, Marcus said, nor are we offering it. Given Ms. Morgan's current employment status, the court may consider imputed income based on her prior salary, but my client is not pursuing spousal support. Alice's jaw tightened. So, he gets everything. No, the judge said. He gets what he built and what you both shared, minus what was used improperly. That's what the numbers show. She scanned the documents once more, then looked up. I'm entering the proposed division into the record. The house remains with Mr. Callahan, vehicle as well. The accounts will be divided per the forensic report. No alimony awarded. This matter is closed. The gavel struck once, a soft, dull sound. Alice stood slowly, as if unsure whether her legs would hold. She gathered her papers with stiff fingers and walked out without a word. James waited until the room had emptied before standing. Marcus packed up the files methodically, no trace of satisfaction on his face. She's going to come at you sideways, he said quietly. I know. I'd suggest changing the locks today. James nodded. Outside, the wind had picked up. The sky had the mottled look of late afternoon before a storm. He drove home, with the windows cracked just enough to smell the rain coming. The kitchen was dim when he entered. The fridge hummed. The house had the stillness of an emptied stage. He poured a glass of water and stood by the sink, watching the light shift across the floor tiles. He didn't hear her come in. You waited until Dallas, Alice said behind him. He turned. She stood in the doorway, hair pulled back, eyes rimmed with red. She looked tired. Something about her posture was quieter now, less combative. I wondered when you started, she said. I thought maybe it was the Slack thing, or the conference. But it was before that. He didn't answer. How long have you known? She asked. Who set this in motion? He held her gaze. Since the laundry room, he said. Since Dallas. Her mouth parted slightly. I heard you on the phone, he continued. You didn't know I was there. You said, he doesn't ask questions anymore. It's easier this way. That was the moment. She looked down. I didn't go nuclear, he said. I went quiet. I watched. I built. She looked up, eyes wet. You were 3 steps ahead. He nodded once. She pressed her back against the doorframe. You let me keep going. You let me think I was safe. I needed the pattern to hold, he said, so the story would build itself. She gave a short, almost laughless breath. You were always good at puzzles. I just stopped pretending not to see them. They stood there, the silence stretching. I got the notice, she said. From the CEO, formal termination, no severance. They cited reputational damage. He didn't respond. "I know you think I deserve it." He didn't correct her. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said quietly. "You just didn't care if you did." She flinched barely. "I'm not going to fight the ruling," she said. "There's nothing left to salvage." She turned to go, then paused. "I'll be gone by the weekend." He gave a single nod. "I'll leave the key under the mat." The door closed softly behind her. Later that night, James sat on the back steps, mug in hand, the steam rising into the cooling air. The lawn was dark, but he could still make out the edges where he'd trimmed earlier. The world hadn't changed. The lights in the neighbors' windows still flickered with television glow. A dog barked 2 yards over. Somewhere, someone was grilling. The house behind him was quiet. The folder was filed away now. The flash drive, too. Marcus had said it was done. But James knew better. Some things didn't end. They just stopped being spoken aloud. A quiet case of justice. By morning, the dew had settled on the roses in neat beads, clinging to the outermost petals like they were reluctant to let go. James moved slowly between the beds, pruning shears in hand, snipping with care. The pink ones near the fence were starting to droop, early for the season. He crouched beside them, brushing away a spider web stretched between 2 stalks. The sun wasn't fully up yet, just a gray wash over the tops of the trees. He liked this hour best, before cars started, before email pings or motion sensors in the driveway kicked on. The silence was clean. Honest, in its way. He stood, wiped his hand on his jeans, and looked back at the house. His house now, though the word didn't quite sit right in his mouth. The paperwork said so. Marcus had made sure of that. The deed, the trust, the accounts, all realigned. No alimony, no contested assets. The SUV stayed in the garage. The guest room was empty again, the beige folder no longer on the bed. All of it tidy. And yet, he went inside, moving through the kitchen with the unconscious rhythm of routine. The chipped mug was where he'd left it, upside down on the dish rack. He filled it, the coffee machine hissing and clicking in the quiet. The sound filled the space, but not the silence. That lingered. He drank by the window, watching the condensation form at the edges of the glass. Across the street, the neighbors' kids were dragging trash bins to the curb in their socks. Life, apparently, kept going. James thought about calling Donnie. He hadn't heard from him since the hearing. There had been a text, short and plain, "Saw the ruling. You good?" To which James had replied, "Fine." No follow-up. That was Donnie's style. He'd give space unless asked otherwise. Other names came and went in his mind, colleagues mostly. A few of Alice's friends who used to smile at him across dinner tables. He'd noticed the online silence, no tags, no likes. Not outright condemnation, but a kind of social evaporation. People didn't quite know what to do with someone who weaponized patience. He rinsed the mug, set it on the counter. The house was clean, meticulously so. No shoes by the door, no scarf on the banister. The living room was austere, unbothered. The scent of her perfume had finally faded from the hallway. He sat at the desk in the study, the same one where he'd spent nights cataloging timestamps and cross-referencing metadata with Dawn's quiet coaching over encrypted chat. She'd never asked why, just told him what he needed to know and made sure her fingerprints weren't on anything official. He owed her something more than thanks, but didn't know what that looked like. The drawer on the right still held the flash drive. He pulled it out, turned it over once in his hand. Black, thumb-sized, unremarkable. It had done its job. So had he. He didn't plug it in, just held it. Somewhere between the first screenshot and the final signature on the divorce decree, something had shifted. Not snapped. James didn't snap, but shifted, like a gear sliding into a new position. He had been, once, a man who gave benefit of the doubt, who assumed decency unless proven otherwise. That man had gone quiet sometime between a whispered lie and a conference hotel booking confirmation. He put the drive back in the drawer. Outside, the mower waited under its tarp. He thought about pulling it out, giving the lawn another pass, but the grass didn't need it yet. He just wanted the sound, the hum, the vibration in his hands, the forward motion. Instead, he walked the perimeter of the yard, hands in pockets. The fence line was solid, the gate latch newly oiled. The flower beds were neat. It all looked exactly as it should, and still the quiet pressed in. Marcus had been blunt. "You got what you wanted, just be sure you still want it." At the time, James had nodded. There hadn't been room for doubt. Strategy didn't allow for it. But now, with the war over and the paperwork sealed, he felt the weight of that question in the walls. He paused near the back steps where the porch light still clicked on automatically at dusk. Alice had once insisted on the sensor. She liked the way it felt welcoming, even if no one was coming. He wondered where she was now. Probably with family, maybe at a friend's place, maybe nowhere in particular, just moving through the days. He didn't wish her harm. That was the part no one quite believed. They thought revenge was anger, fire, and noise. But his had been built on quiet, on meticulous record-keeping and procedural escalation. Not to destroy, but to reveal. And yet, destruction had come anyway. Collateral, perhaps. Or maybe just the natural end of something already cracked. He sat again on the back steps, same chipped mug in hand, now filled with water. The roses were still damp. A breeze moved through the hedges. This was justice. Not loud, not cinematic. Just a clean ledger, a rebalanced scale. But the cost was real. He had his house, his savings, his dignity, if you measured it in outcomes. But the warmth had gone out of things. The shared jokes, the casual touch, the assumed presence of another voice in the room. Those were gone. And they wouldn't be replaced easily. He didn't regret it. But he didn't celebrate it either. A cardinal landed on the fence, red against the pale wood. It chirped once, then flew off. James watched it go, then stood, stretching slowly. The day would begin whether he liked it or not. Inside, the silence waited. Not hostile, just there. He stepped back in, closed the door behind him, and let the latch catch.